Sonic the Hedgehog 3 is one of the best video games movies released in recent years, with its stunning success being drawn from multiple reasons. Its faithfulness to the games, its stunning visuals, or maybe just the double dosage of Jim Carrey playing both Dr. Robotnik and his grandfather Gerald.
It's as if we're two characters in a movie being played by the same actor.
However, when going back to rewatch this movie, it led me to wonder how this could have been without this extra Robotnik. How would the vibe change? Would the tone be different? And what impact could it have on future Sonic installments? What would the character arcs of Shadow and Ivo be like without an absolutely more hideous bad guy for them to hide behind? Well, I decided to go ahead and make this video to see how Sonic Movie 3 would look like without Gerald Robotnik in the present day. A few ground rules just so we can get this out of the way. One, I'm still following the overall plot from the movie and the game it's based on, Sonic Adventure 2. The movie was a well enough adaptation of the video game while still making the necessary changes to fit the big screen. To that end, I still think the film can function without Gerald in the present day, thus removing him from that point in time. We can still see him in flashback scenes, but he isn't around by the time of the events of the movie starting. 2. Jim Carrey would still return as Dr. Robotnik. Carrey has already shown how much interest and passion he has for the character, and I think he would come back to seeing the story of Ivo, the final form of his transformation, and that $12 million payday. Plus, he can still play Gerald in the flashback scenes and make it seem like he's still playing two different characters. And 3, though the plot of this movie might be similar, at the end I do want to discuss the repercussions that this could have for the future of this franchise. Now that we got out of the way, we can begin. The first act of the movie would play out relatively the same. Shadow would wake up from his cryosleep and break out of gun holding on Prison Island, making his way to Tokyo. Sonic and his family would still have their fun day out in the forest until Captain Rockwell would come to their aid. Team Sonic would arrive in Tokyo, meet Shadow, and then get absolutely destroyed by him. It's at this point right now where we get our first deviation from the original story when they meet with Commander Walters. Walters would tell them about Shadow's arrival on Earth and how he was part of the Black Site. However, when an accident occurred involving the lead scientist, the site was shut down and Shadow was placed in suspended animation. Unfortunately, Walter doesn't know how anyone would know about Shadow as he is the last person connected to the original project. Tails would ask about the lead scientist, but Walter confirms that he in fact did die in a federal prison years later, but that there might be one connection between him and someone they all knew. And it turns out to be Dr. Ivo Robotnik. This immediately revolts the trio with Sonic commenting about how Eggman is dead, but Walters would refute this, stating that while it was believed, they never did find Robotnik's body from the Battle of Green Hills, so it can't be ruled out that he survived. Walters then hands Sonic a key, stating that it's one of two keys that connects to a dark past of Gun and ties to Shadow. And since he has to go back to Gun HQ where the other key is, he knows it's a bad idea for them to be closed, and he trusts Sonic to keep it safe. The trio then decides they need to find Robotnik since he's their best bet at tracking Shadow. Knuckles then remembers that Robotnik had a minion and Tails access Gun's database where Knuckles can identify Agent Stone. Tails runs a worldwide search for Stone and picks him up in Tokyo, nearby where Shadow had attacked. The three then head to Agent Stone's current location at the docks and he is surprised to see them, but he realizes that it would only be a matter of time since they meet again after what happened with Green Hills and earlier that night. Sonic asks what Robotnik's plan is with Shadow and Agent Stone shows confusion, stating that they wouldn't want another superpowered rodent running around. The trio obviously don't believe him and he invites them into the crab where we all see Robotnik's current state.
Doctor, we have visitors.
Really? I thought I was having an anthropomorphic nightmare, where the only person I could trust in the world showed up with all my worst enemies while I was in a bathrobe, playing congas on my big fat belly.
The scene plays out the same up until they bring up Shadow. Robotnik has no idea what they are talking about, and Sonic brings up the fact that Robotnik's family has a connection to him, with Tails further elaborating that Robotnik's grandfather was the lead scientist on the project before it shut down, and Knuckles states that hunting Space Hedgehog has always been with him longer than his feud with Sonic. Robotnik then gets motivated and figures out how to track Shadow. We can simply just say that he uses the 3 quills that he has from Sonic, Tails, and Knuckles, tries to find a similar energy source while wiping out their identifiable energy source. This leads them to the abandoned gun facility, and Robotnik gets back into gear.
Tinker Tailor, I need room. Think Elvis, circa 1976.
But, sir, I don't have the proper materials.
Found some.
Resourceful.
We still see the same elements of Shadow flashing back to his time with Maria before hearing the intruders. He ambushes them when they split up, taking down Sonic, Knuckles, Tails, and Agent Stone. Robotnik, who wandered off on its own, finds a sketch of a highly advanced machine, and we see that it's the Eclipse Cannon. He comments that it's something that no one of that time could figure out unless they were a genius. Shadow then appears behind and for a moment mistakes him for the professor. Ivo then sees him and remarks how the hedgehog will die at the hands of Robotnik, and Shadow hears this and calls them family. Robotnik is obviously confused and believes that no one of his family would be assimilated with something like Shadow. The emo hedgehog then explains that when he arrives on Earth, Gerald and his granddaughter both cared for him while the rest of Gun experiments on it. However, one day when Gun couldn't control Shadow, tragedy struck and they locked him away for 50 years. Robotnik, for the first time ever, is finally being able to relate. And for how his entire life he's been all alone, he had no family and nobody saw him as anything more than expendable, and believes that then and there he's reunited with what he has left of his family. Shadow then asks if it was the blue faker that led him here. Sonic then awakes and sees Robotnik and Shadow join forces, and obviously calls them out. And Robotnik would be immediately frustrated, yelling about how the fact that Sonic lied to him in order to use him to find Shadow. And even though Sonic and Eggman are enemies, Sonic can't help but admit on his face that that's true. He did deceive Eggman so that they could take down Shadow. Robotnik then states that the day that Sonic came to this rotten world was the worst day of his life because Sonic ruined what little he had to begin with. Shadow discovers the key from the trio and takes it from them, and Robotnik frees Agent Stone, who in turn calls the Crab to take them out. Before leaving, Robotnik thanks him for reuniting him with his family, and he hopes Sonic enjoys dying with his. Shadow then deploys the black hole and seemingly kills the trio, but we know that that isn't true. In the Crab, Robotnik analyzes the key and discovers that it's used to activate the Eclipse Cannon, the same design from the facility drawing. He discovers that it was designed by his grandfather Gerald and realizes that Gun, in addition to abusing his family, has also stolen his family's legacy. They discover that the other key needed to activate it is in Gun headquarters in London, so the three agree to go there. The events with Team Sonic's side of the story plays out the same as they recruit Tom and Maddie to help them break into Gun headquarters. Team Sonic breaking into the Gun headquarters plays out the same, but with Robotnik's side it's a bit different. Instead of going in with his grandfather Gerald, Robotnik would go in with Agent Stone, leaving Shadow on his own. They would infiltrate the facility the same way, but I would also want to incorporate a deleted scenario where Shadow notices Sonic running through London and chases him through Gun headquarters, only losing him when Tails activates Trap to keep Shadow occupied. After breaking into the key room, everyone would be there. Sonic, Tails, Tom, Maddie, Rockwell, Stone, Walters, and Robotnik. Rockwell would question Robotnik about how he freed Shadow, and Robotnik would retaliate, stating he didn't know anything about Shadow since Gun hid everything about his family from him. It's here we get the big reveal that Stone was the one who freed Shadow. When he was rescuing Robotnik at the post-credit scene, Stone overheard Walters talking about Project Shadow, and when Robotnik seemingly fell into a bit of an existential crisis, Stone believes that freeing Shadow would bring the Doctor back to his old self. Walters, seeing that gun headquarters has been compromised, goes to take the key to an undisclosed location, and Knuckles comes in, triggering the zero gravity scene. After Sonic saves everyone, Tom goes to try and intercept Walters, with the two getting into a scrap. Shadow, having broken out from his containment, finds them and sees Walters. A flood of emotions comes back to his time with the former gun soldiers, and he goes to kill him, taking control of the key. Tom is caught in the impact and is knocked unconscious, with Robotnik and Stone having arrived from escaping the anti-gravity room. They see Shadow with the key and an unconscious Tom. Sonic then arrives just as she Shadow teleport them all away onto the Eclipse Cannon. Once they're aboard the ship, Robotnik gets a suit and launches the weapon as it rises from the sky.
I need to stop them, by any means necessary.
Wait, you don't mean...
The Master Emerald.
Sonic then would ditch his friends and go after the Master Emerald, but this time it's not out of a pursuit of vengeance, but rather a worry of Tom's safety. Deep down, Sonic blames himself for this scenario, as if he did not manipulate Robotnik, then maybe Tom wouldn't be in this predicament. Shadow flashes back to Maria's death, and we hear from Gerald Robotnik asking Shadow to avenge their family.
Remember what she meant to us. Remember what they took from us.
Shadow uses this as motivation and powers up the Eclipse Cannon, with Robotnik prepping the firing sequence. Stone is glad to see Robotnik back to his former self and cheers on the Doctor. And Robotnik, for a moment, feels sentiment with his henchmen, before the two make a shocking discovery. The amount of chaos energy Shadow is creating will be enough to destroy Earth. Tom wakes up as this discovery is made, and when Robotnik goes to question Shadow, the Hedgehog claims it's justice for their family.
It's almost finished, Maria. You will have justice.
Stone, obviously not as connected to the Robotniks, tries to protest before Sonic arrives and grabs Shadow through the Eclipse Cannon, taking them to start their fight. With Shadow distracted, Robotnik tries to change the firing sequence. Tom goes into hero mode and tries to fight Robotnik, but Stone comes in and throws hands with the Donut Lord. Tom would win for a moment, but Stone would overpower him and prepare to throw him over the edge, but Knuckles and Tails arrives, and Knuckles used the same move on Stone that he used in the second movie and sends him flying back through the portal they used to get there. Meanwhile, back with the fight between Sonic and Shadow, since Shadow never saw Sonic relating to his pain, the two never are able to be connected, and as such, Shadow doesn't get redeemed. Now I know where you all might be telling me that this is the stupidest thing, but I think it gives Shadow more room to grow, and his redemption story could be the course of a multi-film arc, to where it starts off in Sonic 3, carries over into a Shadow spin-off, and when he comes back in a future Sonic movie, he is a slightly better person. But in this instance, when Sonic gets the upper hand, instead of killing Shadow, he uses a ring to send Shadow to another planet. Sonic then races back to the Eclipse Cannon and sees Tom is okay and Tails or Knuckle are back there, and the family briefly has a great moment. It's then here that we get the final showdown. Robotnik places himself into the center of the room, and using the 3 quills that he acquired from Sonic, Tails, and Knuckles, he's able to create a barrier around him. He reveals that he has enough chaos energy to destroy the planet, but he won't do that, as he intends to rule it instead. However, since the world has never taken him seriously his entire life, he plans on demonstrating his power by using a small amount of energy to destroy Green Hills. Everyone is terrified, and Sonic calls out to Robotnik, apologizing him for all the pain he's caused, and tries to see the humanity in the Doctor. Robotnik refuses this, claiming that today is the day he will take back his destiny. Tails opens a portal to Green Hills so Tom can evacuate everyone, and Sonic gives the power of the Master Emerald to Knuckles and Tails so they can become Super Knuckles and Tails. Super Tails goes off to hold off the laser while Knuckles moves the station away from Earth. Robotnik, clearly enraged, summons a swarm of gun robots to attack Sonic while siphoning the Chaos Energy. Sonic dodges and using Robotnik aiming the Chaos Energy at him and having it so that it hits the robots instead. During this entire time, the Hedgehog once again tries to appeal to his arch-enemy's humanity, but this fails once more as he blames Sonic for everything that is wrong with his life. Between Robotnik's attacks, Tails blocking the laser, and Knuckles with an Eclipse Cannon, the station starts to damage and soon the reactor core begins failing. And while it may be safe from Earth, Knuckles and Tails run out of super energy and the Eclipse Cannon fires at the moon. Robotnik, seeing this, switches up his plans and supercharges the reactor and shield the station, so that even though he might not be just taking over the world, he can at least destroy his enemy. Robotnik, in his greed, tries to fire a mega beam of chaos energy, and Sonic uses that as a way to escape the Eclipse Cannon, leaving Robotnik to seemingly blow up in the space station. Sonic dives down to Earth and using his last ring, saves himself and his friends. On the ground, he apologizes to them and it ends with a group hug. We would then get one more scene with the family as they are grateful to have each other in their lives before we end the movie on the race. Now I know what you're thinking. It feels like it's the same movie, but it might seem to dampen the arcs of both Shadow and Robotnik. However, I don't think it does. Instead, we get to see humanity in Shadow and Robotnik, and feel what they feel. Feel like the entire time they lived their lives, they never got to have any control or any love in it. They feel as if they've been rejected and used by the world, and they feel justified by the actions based on how much they've been treated. And even though the movie ends the same, the next time our heroes would meet Shadow and Robotnik, it would be completely different than to how they might meet up in Sonic 4. So what do you guys think? Do you think that this is a great alternative version of Sonic 4? Do you really think Jim Carrey would have come back if he didn't play two characters? Let me know about your thoughts about this in the comments, and as always, if you enjoyed today's video, consider leaving a like, comment, and subscribe with the notification bells, that way you never miss a single video. Other than that, I've been Gamer Plays, and I'll see you in the next one. Until then, laters!